Hello, everyone. Thanking you. I just give you a quick introduction. So, I'm Stephen Doyle. I'm the founder of an open source threat intelligence company called Webamon. We basically monitor the internet and the web and democratize the access to people that usually don't get it. So, the reason I asked for you is to jump in if I go too much down a rabbit hole. I've spent the last 10 years in the IT world. The last 8 have been strictly cybersecurity, a variation of roles between incident response with CrowdStrike, CME Group, and then security engineering with Synopsys. Um, I fell in love with the security engineering. I enjoyed building the solutions to the problems rather than repetitively responding to them. Um, and then, yeah, my personality was just always looking for more. I found a lot of problems when it came to threat intelligence, when we were dealing with vendors, the data we were getting. And as we say here, I had a chip in my shoulder and I wanted to do something about it. The main thing was democratizing the access. So at Webamon, we say we democratize threat intelligence. And what we mean by that is my view of the current threat intelligence industry, which we'll get into. What is that? Why does it exist? My view is it's a bunch of companies with just branding and marketing selling data that's widely available on the internet. It just needs to be aggregated. So that's what Webamon does. Webamon comes in, we aggregate the data, we also scan the web, and then we go, look, we don't need to charge 5 or 6 figures for this because at the end of the day, most of the threat actors now have changed their tactics. They're targeting mid-level to small to medium businesses. And the reason for that's quite simple. If you're a Fortune 500 or an enterprise, you have a budget. That could be 6 to 7 figures each year for your cybersecurity. So, from a threat actor's point of view, it's much harder to breach one of them companies. And for the same amount of time they spend trying to breach an enterprise, they could probably breach 100 small, medium businesses. And as I said, the chip on my shoulder is most of the data, which is then turned into intelligence. It's on the internet for free. People just need to find it and give it to those that are most vulnerable. And in my eyes, as I said, the most vulnerable are the small to medium businesses that A, don't even know what cybersecurity is, never mind threat intelligence. So with that being said, I decided to go, I'll try shake up the threat intelligence industry. I just see your message there now. Yeah, I came at it with a different approach of let's build an open source tool. Let's build our own data center because you can't afford to scan the web on somebody else's cloud. We built our own sandbox. I'm sure a lot of people here are familiar with URL scan. So we built an open source URL scan and we just use that to scan the web. Yeah, so that's Webamon. Very simply put, we call ourselves the Google of threat intelligence. And the reason why, because we scan and index the entire web. We just don't have that marketing or biasm piece in the middle. So we return the unfiltered data. So that's my introduction. I know it was long and roundabout it. All I'm going to say is you can't make fun of me in the chat because, I don't speak your language. So, but if you do have any questions, please do put them in English. So, a bit of introduction about me. Covered what Webamon is. Webamon's an open source threat intelligence company. What is threat intelligence? You could honestly have a 2 or 3 hour video or conversation next week with many different people just debating the answer to that. My view of threat intelligence is quite simply it's taking data, finding the signal in the noise, and there being actionable output on that. You will probably hear a lot of, if you go down the threat intelligence industry or a rabbit hole, you will hear the term actionable threat intelligence. In my view, threat intelligence needs to be actionable anyway. So what is threat intelligence? I define it as it's actionable data. makes threat intelligence, or finding the signal in the noise is another one you might have heard of. So WebMO and how we get started. Again, we scan, we index and monitor the entire web. And then we expose an API to threat intelligence analysts for automation or their own investigations to threat hunt the web. And there's two ways we do this. So if you're familiar with Python, we can just pip install the WebMon command line, which is personally my favorite way to use WebMon, and we'll find out why. Or if you're not too comfortable with the command line, there is the link we sent into the chat, the google.webamon.com. I personally don't call this a console or a user interface. The reason being is because it just doesn't look good enough. So we call it an API query builder. So starting the actual using WebMon, I always tell people to go to the hunting examples. And the reason being, the hunting examples is the fastest way to figure out what does WebMon do, what value do I get out of it. Now we've broken them up by categories here. Some of them are more interesting than others, some of them are more boring, like governance, risk and compliance. I'm too technical for that. Looks like girly pop and nice. Oh, listen, that wasn't me. I think that was either Cursor or ChatGPT, or maybe both. But I appreciate the feedback. But yeah, my favorite ones in here, and this is really where WebMon stands out. Because we scan the web every day, or at least are on a mission to do that, being transparent, we're not. We're just not at the scale to have the servers in our cloud to do that. As of right now, we scan about 11 million domains a day. For context, URL scans, public ones are at the bottom. I think they're about 2.4 million. But our advantages are none of our domains are user submitted. So we just take all the domains that we know are registered and we'll just scan them all. And a big part about that is the newly registered domains. Now, what does newly registered domains have to do with threat intelligence? Very simply, there's two things. So brand abuse and phishing, or you could say malicious and brand abuse. Brand abuse could be anything as simple as, MicrosoftSucks.com. There's no malicious intent. Well, that's a lie. There clearly is malicious intent, but in terms of deliverable from a technical point of view, there's no malware, there's no phishing, but it's abusing a brand. So there's that aspect when it comes to threat intelligence. A company would want to know, is somebody talking crap about me, or somebody registered a domain? So a great example we've seen of this last year was the CrowdStrike fiasco. So I'm sure a lot of you remember the CrowdStrike fiasco, took out half the world. We noticed 2-3 weeks after that, there was about 400 domains registered that were brand abusing CrowdStrike rather than being malicious. They were just CrowdStrike.fail, CrowdStrikeBlueScreen.com. And that's a perfect example. So that would be brand abuse or brand intelligence. The other thing, which I would consider more valuable with the newly registered domains, is the malicious intent. And by malicious, I mean from a technical aspect, whether we're phishing, we're doing infostealers, it's downloading malware. We get the data every single day of these are the 200,000 newly registered domains. And where WebMon comes in is we turn that into intelligence. So using our sandbox, we'll scan the 200 to 300,000 newly registered domains each day. And then if you use URL scan, WebMon sandbox will be quite similar. So we can see the URLs, the technology, screenshots, cookies, etc., etc. And then from there, we're able to search within the bodies and the resources of the 300,000 websites. And we can just quite simply search for Revolut phishing or this or whatever. And whenever we find that, okay, we'll go, this is intelligence for Revolut, or this is intelligence for the financial industry. Ramble over. I'm sure you were dying for me to finally click on use query. And yes, CrowdStrike did mess up. But what I will say, because everyone always makes jokes because I worked in the CrowdStrike internal incident response team, but I left well before that fiasco. Yeah, CrowdStrike, their lessons learned was very well. And all I can say is the year after that happened, they made the most money they've ever made. So people still love CrowdStrike. And so do I, in fairness. So here we ran the query from our hunting examples for the newly registered domains yesterday. So the 18th of August. Now we can see there's 181,000. Now whoever said nice UI is probably going to change their opinion now. I'm more of a JSON guy. Reason being is because I'll always deal with automation or APIs. So I need to look at the raw data. But there's the table here as well. And if we were lazy, because I am, that's why I built WebAmon to be lazy. I can go to hunting examples, see what I want to look for, adjust my query to maybe include my brand, and get started. But here we're very loosely just looking at all the newly registered domains. And we get a bit of snippets of what's available. So we get the submission URL, fingerprints, we'll get into. This, I love one of the values of WebAmon. Page title, and then resolved URL. So the reason we have the submission URL and the resolved URL is because sometimes they're different. So for example, CrowdStrikeFail.com may be our submission URL, but they're yet to do their malicious campaign, so they just set a redirect to CrowdStrike.com. So if we were to look at the resolved URLs, we would never actually see that initial submission. Oh, I'm reading the messages here and they're pulling my heartstrings. Stop trying to distract me, Senior Flapper. Right, back on track. How I would come in here and look at this data being the newly registered domains we scanned yesterday. Again, I'm a lazy threat hunter. So we got screenshots and we got page title. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just look for a page title where the screenshot looks interesting. Now we will show some use cases. So this just looks like a parked page. That's fine. If I wanted to be lazy, I can adjust the results from 10 to 500 and look at them all. But let's do one better. A WebAmon scan, again, just think of it as a URL scanner, has 180 fields. And I'm going to jump between consoles here. So if you remember, I said there's the WebAmon command line. And when you pip install the WebAmon command line, you don't need to do anything else. You can just run WebAmon and it works. And if you want to see, again, the easiest way that I think to translate what a tool can do is look at the fields. It's like, right, well, what's populated on the output? What does it give me? Or look at the documentation. So I'm not a big fan of the documentation. So I built a simple function called fields. So on the command line, we can do WebAmon fields. We have the exact same option available just in our documentation on the UI. You can see we have the fields broken out. But there's 180 of these. All right, I hope I might actually be wrong. I hope
Stephen,
I'm not wrong.
if you are
Yeah.
sharing a terminal right now, we can't see it. We only see the WebAmon
You
page.
can't?
No.
Oh, jeepers, thanking you.
Yeah, so I
I
thought that might
I
have
must
been
have
wrong.
only shared the application. Bear with me.
Yeah, no problem.
Green. Okay, I only shared the application. Apologies, I'm thanking you. Really quick. So just WebAmon from the command line. Once you do the pip install WebAmon CLI. And the command I ran was WebAmon fields. And this gives you a list. So I checked there, there's 183 of everything. I ain't going to tell you what each one of them does, but we've made it simple. So if we were to do WebAmon fields, and then if we were to run this with our help flag, we can see we have a search option. So again, if you ever had the thought of, can I find certificates in WebAmon? Can I find technology? Does it do this? Well, then we'll do WebAmon fields, the S flag, and let's say I want to look for server. All this does from a technical point of view, it takes the string server and it looks for that either in the description. You can see here certificate.cipher mention server, or it will look for a field name that includes server. So again, if you wanted to dive into everything, WebAmon fields -s, does WebAmon do this? Now, I'm going to stay on the command line. Now, if I change my screen here again, okay, I'm going to hold it for a second. Interrupt me if you can't see Google. I definitely done screen share. So we were looking at the newly registered domains. And we wanted to do a bit more with the fields, which is why we looked here with all the fields. Now I know from experience, because believe it or not, I may have used WebAmon once or twice before. One of my favorite fields is the page title. I'm thanking you for confirming the website. So the value of the page title for me, when it comes to threat hunting, it's great. Because if we were to just look at the domain names, so for example, CrowdStrike failed, CrowdStrike sucks, we know that's related to CrowdStrike. But say, for example, flowers24random.com was registered, and that was hosting CrowdStrike brand abuse or CrowdStrike phishing, we would never know just based off the domain name. And that's why I love the page title, because we can go, for example, now Microsoft is heavily abused. So, but some interesting ones I've seen recently is Revolut, which I'm sure everyone here has maybe some experience with. In Ireland, we love it. And okay, look, that was, I didn't pre-plan this, so I hope this works out amazingly. That looks like Russian to me, and it looks like it says Google Play. Before I click on screenshot, I'll assume this is a Revolut Android app. Okay, and it is. If you can hear me getting more excited, it's because this is genuinely just the perfect demo that wasn't pre-planned. And the reason being is because if we look at the resolved and the submitted URL, as I said a minute ago, this doesn't include Revolut. So it's AD Rastus, or however way you want to pronounce it. The demo gods are with me. Yes, thank you. I just wish this actually worked in work and not, at a community where I can be more relaxed. So that's great. I mean, it's not great, but that's a perfect example of when we just ran this query, we got whatever, 183,000 domains. And then when we ran this query, the difference between the two of them is we've now turned that 183,000 pieces of data into at least one piece of intelligence for Revolut. I'm sure Revolut would love to know that there's Russian-style phishing for, I'm going to assume this is malware, or, yeah, I mean, we might have found a criminal, so let's dig into it a bit more. So we have the report ID. Now, again, I said I love the JSON. And the reason I love the JSON is because I've built some good features into here. We have fingerprints. I'm going to try and take my time explaining what this is. And sorry, I missed a question. How do you apply OSINT in threat intelligence? What are key points you need to look down for? Okay, I'm going to write that down because I'm going to answer that at the end. Malware. And I didn't miss anything else, did I? Perfect. Cool. So fingerprints. Now you can see here, there's very limited fields returned. There's not the 180 fields I've shown here. Now 21 for server. The reason being is because it's just extremely messy. If we wanted all the fields, look, we can just click clear all fields and it will return, I think on average, they're about 1 megabyte because we save all the resources, we save the document object model, and we don't want to drown people in information. But the fingerprints, what are the fingerprints? For this, I will actually return the whole thing because it will make more sense. The fingerprints is how we promote and use, there we go, large file, the tracking of malicious campaigns. So I'm on the Pro API endpoint, that's why I get forbidden. Search.webamon.com is the public API endpoint. So we're looking at a WebAmon report here with no filtered fields, so everything. So we have the certificates. And one thing I want to touch on is all the data we have for the first party. In this case, the first party is the adrastos.info. Excuse me. But for certificates, domains, servers, technology, we go to the same level of scanning for their third parties. So we get to see like corporate enterprises like to think they'll never get breached, but it's easy to sell them on, that's okay, but your supplier will. And they understand that. And that's the truth. Supply chain vectors are a lot on the rise the past few years. So we figure there's no point just scanning this domain. Let's look at all the domains that support that and scan them as well. So here we have the domains. Now this is only contacted 2 in fairness. Now this is a domain object. Now if you remember the fingerprints I was talking about, if we go back to WebAmon search. So fields to return, I honestly just want to look at the fingerprint for domains. Now if anyone here likes scripting or data analytics, you might appreciate this. So what this value is, it's a SHA-256, but of what? It's of this. So we take, there's 2 items in this list here, 2 domain objects. This one, and you can see all the information. There's a lot. So there's 28 resources hosted on that domain. That's the IP. You know, there's all the resources and the URLs, the MIME types. There's a lot here. And again, if I'm jumping over anything or assuming knowledge, please call me out. But sticking to the point of our fingerprint hashes, in this case, what we do is we take the domain object, and we can see that's a list with 2. We sort it, and we SHA-256 hash it. So we have the hash of all of this information. And what that allows us to do is look for similar infrastructure. Now I say similar, but the truth of the matter is look for the exact same infrastructure. So we can click on this and we can go pivot. Now I'd expect to only see one result here, but if they all of a sudden decided to host phishing for a load of banks on the same network infrastructure, we have the fingerprint. So we can, if we've scanned it, and now here we're going to see if there's more than one. There's not, you know what I mean? The demo gods can only be too well. So for pages, so for any page, you automatically can see all the directories of it. Oh yes, you're gonna love that. Thank you for setting up my next transition. I hope I answered the question properly. Apologies for the delay there. I was just reading. So yeah, fingerprints. Is the hashed value of these objects in the report. So if we look here, we got fingerprint SSL. So SSL is, you know, our certificates, make sure we get the green lock. Technology could be this threat actor is using WordPress, Cloudflare. cookie, self-explanatory. ASN is the networks. Domains is the one I just showed you. And then we'll also hash all of the scripts on the page. So again, if it was just a simple static phishing kit that they decided to put somewhere else, we could find it by pivoting on this as well. Now, I'm not going to go through everything here, but again, sticking to the Intel perspective, if we wanted to track this campaign, you know, we could take all of these hashes, for example, and say, okay, let's track them in WebAmon and see if anything else more comes up. Again, that's where you get to shift the pendulum from data to intelligence. And it was quite easy in this case because we just looked at the newly registered domains. It gave us too much data. And we just took an easy approach to look for page title Revolut. And it worked out perfectly in this case. Now, just for the open directories, I'm going to shut up for 20 seconds to see if anyone has any questions. So for any... Okay, so open directories. This is great. I don't know if you've deliberately said this to line me up for it, but we found an interesting malicious campaign this morning from yesterday's registered domains. And how we found it was through open directories. So I'm sorry if you understand what open directories are. The reason I'm saying it is because I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to describe it. In short, it's a misconfiguration on the threat actor's perspective. Some could argue it's not. Most of the time it is. It's whenever they come to setting up their web hosting, they've got a path wrong, and now they've exposed their root directory on their domain rather than the web content directory. It's mostly comes down to that stupidity. Or sorry, I shouldn't call threat actors stupid. They'll come after me. Again, to make everything lazy, I go, let's make feeds. So I'm going to give you a perfect example of how I found a very, very, very interesting malicious phishing website that was registered yesterday. So when I'm sitting around doing nothing, maybe it's sitting on the toilet, on the bus, I check WebAmon for anything interesting. So I'll either come into the domains feed, which is like a different view of what I just showed you, or I'll come into the open directories feed. Because for me, what open directories is, it means silly person's feed. And I like to spend my time looking around at silly stuff. So we can see all these page titles have index of. So they're directories. The page title is giving us index of root. Like I said, usually misconfigurations, and they expose their whole root directory. But we've two things here. We've the screenshot, or we have the source, the document object model. They're both the same thing, simply put. The screenshot is just the screenshot, or the document object model is the source. And then we just display the folders in a nicer way rather than having to do the screenshot. Now, I seen from this screenshot, there was no actual folders in the directory. You can see, I hope you can see. Oh, well, there we go. They both have opened. So this is the raw data of the open directory. If there was folders, we would see them here. But we can see in this screenshot, there is no folders. But it's interesting because we can very quickly go down, just click on a screenshot. A lot of them will be CGI bin because they're just honestly getting set up. But I seen one this morning, and it was by pure chance. I was just sitting here, it refreshed, and it was AnyDesk, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, it was AnyDesk. I always get them confused. I hope. Yeah, AnyDeskT.org, if I remember correctly. And the reason I'm showing you this is because it's nearly like, well, what do I do to get started? Let me show you how I found this very interesting piece of intelligence from doing nothing. Now I'm searching AnyDesk now because this was about 9 hours ago. So the feeds have just progressed. So I'm searching it to get it. So I was just sitting scrolling. I seen AnyDesk t.org. It was actually this one because we can see this was a community. Community means anyone that's submitted the domain to our community sandbox. And in this case, it was me because I was scanning it again. This one I didn't see earlier because obviously I didn't search for AnyDesk. But this was the one I seen. It just popped up, anydeskt.org. For the tag, it's NRD. So NRD is newly registered domains. And we can see by the ISO date stamp, it was registered yesterday. So straight away I was like, AnyDesk, pretty good typo squat, registered yesterday, and an open directory. I was like, oh, they burned this campaign. So then I was like, right, well, we'll look at it. When I looked at it, now I'll be honest, I don't like the speed of when we show the document object model, but I'll show you it for the sake of it because there is a folder in this one. How is it different from Shodan? So Shodan scans all the IP addresses and shows you what open ports and banners. WebAmon, I would simply say, is Shodan for the web layer. So we don't scan IP addresses, we scan all of the domains and then all of the resources and stuff in there. So the easiest way you could think of it is WebAmon is Shodan for the web, and Shodan is Shodan for the internet. So not just the web. We are smaller category, just the web part. So if you were to go ports 80, 443, the services that run on them, but then we're fully intrusive on them. Whereas Shodan would be IP, all the ports, banners. Yeah, like a year or two ago, we used to say we were the Shodan for the web. I hope that answers your question. But yeah, perfect. Thanks for delaying me because this actually loaded. So we can see download. Now, what I'm about to do, I'd advise you never to do, but I checked all this before loading it earlier to make sure nothing's bad. And how we can check to make sure nothing's bad or is bad, we got the report ID here. So we can do one of two things, view the screenshot there or get the report. And when we get the report, it will by default have no fields, so it returns everything. Again, because I've used WebAmon once or twice before, I know there's the page scripts field and the page links. Now, there's nothing in here because obviously that's just the open directory. And we know the open directory was anydeskt.org/download. And the best part about this, sorry, I forgot to mention, if you click on a domain, we can fire it straight into VirusTotal, check infostealers, because WebAmon has infostealers. So on the fly, we can just check, well, has the threat actor been pwned? So if we wanted to drill into this a bit further to the open directory, which we know is download, that's kind of where the threat actor meant for us to go. We could scan anydeskt.org/download. Now, all that does is it brings you to this. Now, there's no malicious scripts that runs in the background here. It's just this. Now, the best part about this, if I unfull screen, it's on a different root domain. So, sorry, this one is the same, anydesk.t.org. As you can see, clearly used for malicious purposes. When we click on download, I haven't been able to get around this. Please do download it. I have the opinion that it's mobile malware. So, because I've tried it on WebAmon and I've tried it on URL scan to scan it, And when you do it that way, they have Cloudflare protection in front of it. To be honest, I haven't tried. But if you look at my LinkedIn, there's enough information to get you started. You can figure it out. So the fact it's an unsupported browser fired by Google, I need to check if that's just a BS redirect or it's genuinely. I haven't gone too much into the rabbit hole because unfortunately most of my days I don't get to spend threat hunting all the time anymore. So it's like, right, I spent 40 minutes on this. But yeah, the reason I'm showing you this is just you asked the question about the open directories. So I hope this answered your question. And then we have another couple of feeds as well. Now, these are powerful feeds. So these are our info stealers. If we want to know how many we have. No, sorry, what's an info stealer? For non-technical people, and I know everyone here is technical, but I still use it as the same way. It's just a modern day virus, and it's going to take another 3 or 4 years before people realize that it works in the way it works. So you can go to a malicious website, download something, whether it's whatever, cracked Discord or this or whatever. You'll get Discord or you'll get the cracked whatever, but it will be bundled with malware. And the whole goal of that malware, the type of malware being called an info stealer, is all it does is it will look for, do you have any crypto wallets? Do you have any interest in document names? Do you have saved passwords in your Chrome, SQLite DBs and everything? And I mean, it just takes everything that you think is private, mainly passwords, and yeah, then just sells them to threat actors. So that's what info stealers are. Information stealing malware that's predominantly going to go for your Chrome saved passwords, your crypto wallets, and any interest in document names. A lot of them will work off strings. So if you've got documents that are called certain things, and then some of them will even look in the documents and go, yeah, we'll take this. Yeah, what I will say is if you got your wallet seed phrase just stored in a text file, one of two things. You either want to make sure you don't have a lot of money in that wallet or you don't have an info stealer. But in here, we audit this access. So here we have 363 million. Yeah, it's not a number that makes me happy. But what I will say is that's a small number when it comes to info stealers. So we only have 0.3 of a billion. There's companies out there, like the biggest one known is probably Hudson Rock. I think they got billions. There was a leak last month that everyone was kind of like, oh, what's this? And it was 20 billion info stealers, supposedly. But then when people looked into them, they were, 4, 5, 6 years old. So yeah, info stealers, modern day malware with the simple goal of stealing your passwords, your info, interest in documents, crypto wallets. Malicious NFT. Hang on, I'm supposed to be teaching you guys. That's a thing? Okay. Let me look into that. Don't go sending me an NFT now. Or maybe you should have beforehand and you would have hacked me. Good to know malicious NFTs exist. That's a smart delivery. Very good. Yeah, so I am going to show you one last thing. Because if you were ever to use WebAmon in one sense, I want it to be this command. Not clear. The next one. So WebAmon, the command for the tool, search, because we want to search the web, followed by string. Now, if it's a single word, great, make it be a single word. If it's a phrase, we'll wrap it in quotes. All I'm going to do is WebAmon search Telegram. If you're to take anything away from this, pip install WebAmon, and if you ever want to search stuff across the web, WebAmon search followed by what you want. What I will say is there's a lot of bad on the web, We don't filter anything, hence we democratize threat intelligence. So there's a lot of people here that can do good. That's the reason I say this. When it comes to this command, webamon search, if you want to find bad, put in bad. If you want to find good, put in good. But there is a lot of bad on the web that I think people should assist with, find. And I personally know there's a lot of bad on webamon because obviously that's the whole point of the business, isn't it? Or the project is we scan the web, find the bad. So here I'm just searching Telegram across all the webamon scans. To make things simple, by default, this will do a few things on the back end. It will take Telegram and it will look for that string or phrase in the page titles, the document object model, which is just the body of the website, the URLs, and the tags. So we're searching for Telegram across page titles, in the websites, etc. Now I did make this to whatever, but by default it will return the latest 10 results and in a table format. Now, if you remember from the start, I always said I like JSON just because it's the bread and butter of my security engineering life. So I'm gonna kill this command. To get the JSON, all we do is a format flag. So -- format JSON. And I'm gonna pipe this into the Linux less command because I don't want all 10 of them coming out. Yes, Rich is good. I love it. it's one of the nicest, I think. There's more ones out there that I'm not educated enough with. I've seen some tables and command line tools and like interactive ones where you can like arrow up and down through the tables, and I'm like, why can't webamon be like that? But here's the default fields it returns. So when we do a basic search, webamon search followed by string, like I said, it will search a few places in webamon reports, page titles, document object models, etc. Whenever we get a hit, the matched field just tells us where is it. And in here we can see it's in the DOM. Now, one thing we do, which you can turn on or off, whenever it's returned from the API, it will wrap the hit, the string telegram, in mark tags. So like whenever we looked at the table, these mark tags get parsed, so you can very quickly see JSON, MD, CSV, all of them except XML. So you can export it to Markdown, CSV, and JSON. And to do that, again, let's just throw in the help flag. So here we have export. So JSON, Markdown table, or CSV. And if you wanted to add fields, so for example, we've seen here, oh yeah, it's not going to show us, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. These are the count of fields that returned. Let's say we want a webamon search format JSON, but we only want server IPs or resources. We'll just do fields. And if you remember at the start, webamon fields command will show us all the fields. And here I'm going to do server. So just double check, it gives me everything I want. And then I'll just do -export. So here's all of our, because I put in the parent server, and there's nested fields underneath server, so like server.name, server.country, it will return the full server object. And then, if we wanted to export to table or markdown, just -o or -- export, and then MD or markdown. The whole point is obviously we can pipe this into jQuery or something else downstream is the goal. Hope that answered your question. But yeah, honestly, folks, guys and gals, I'm going to leave it there because I have a terrible problem if I don't. I'm just going to ramble for like 2 or 3 hours and everyone's going to fall asleep. So I try to keep it as coherent and structured as possible. But if you do want to get started, The easiest way, like I said, we're open source, so there's multiple ways. Google.webamon.com. If you hit our API limits, just go to our GitHub and we have our full stack. So it's like, okay, well, I'll just download it and scan the web myself. The main advantage we have, because we have to stay alive. That's the problem of running an open source company. It's like, how do we make money? People can just download it. So what we do is we're like, right, we'll build infrastructure off cloud and scan the web as much as we possible so other people don't have to. And then that's the revenue model. But if you want the actual source code and everything, take it, steal it, do whatever you want. I am gonna hang around, obviously, for these guys have any questions. See on the website, paying customers, they do indeed. Do you follow through on these customers? Yeah. So the question being, in the commercial sense, we do takedown requests. We do. And do we follow through? Yeah, it's fully managed service. So for the enterprise, it's unlimited. For the founding analyst, it's one a month. Basically, what we do is on the back end, like in Webamon, we'll make queries, and a variation of what I showed you for the hunting examples, the newly registered domains. We use this as the basis, build your brand and your keywords into it, and then if you get any hits, you'll get notified, obviously, but at the same time, we initiate the takedown procedures. So yeah, it's complete follow through. And then the next, there you can generate. Yeah, all I see is URL scanners can't be trusted 100%. You're absolutely correct. Yep. When the offers target specific user agents, they can generate completely different pages. Yeah. So Edward said basically, depending on a lot of things, and the extent threat actors go to evade automated scanners is unbelievable. Because that's one thing on our roadmap, is to improve our sandbox that we evade the automatic scanners. But yeah, there's loads of things. Like some websites will check if you're using debug. One now is if they got the headless flag, it will return. User agents was obviously a big one. Some of them will be country specific. So if they only were targeting the Middle East, they'll just block all IPs even scanning it. Yeah, what Edward said is a great point. Like, never analyze thing from one way or one angle, especially like that example I showed you with the possible mobile malware. You know, Cloudflare blocks it from an automatic scanner. From Google, Google says unsupported browser. But, you know, is it an unsupported browser or was it just a redirect? I didn't check. Or is it an unsupported browser? So I need to change the user agent. Yeah, I just want to drive that home, that point, what Edward said. Very good point. Always, you want to come at everything from 100 different ways when you're analyzing, especially if you're going to give a conclusion that something is something. In the example hunt queries, I saw malware in C2. If an attacker is using IP tables, I am here. I'm just mentally processing denial and errors question. Okay, the easiest way I'd say is think of dynamic DNS. Now, I understand two different things here, but if you were to register a domain name to act like a dynamic DNS, where you could just put that in front of your C2 server, whether as in it's from a management perspective, like let's say it's whatever, malware as a service login panel, that's how we'll catch it. So we'll catch it if you decide to basically do like a dynamic DNS type activity. So you go, I'm going to register personaldomain.com, and then in that I've set up a redirect to just the raw IP address or your website. For example, let's say it's phishing connects to that raw IP, so IP port whatever slash. We will see that, but when it comes to the main C2 example is if they were to put like a dynamic DNS in front of it, and then if anything resolves to an IP address, that's kind of what that means. I hope that makes sense. But to answer your question, uses IP tables to protect ports. To be honest, I'm not actually sure. I'm not gonna. I know I see he means closed ports. Yeah, what I would say is we wouldn't have a full, deep, granular ability to catch C2s. It would really be if the threat actor kind of done dynamic DNS behavior. We'd catch it that way. Do you know how many gigabytes of data WebMon has? I do indeed. Let me check. I gotta add this all up manually. So when it comes to OpenSearch, we got our bare metal OpenSearch cluster as of right now is 6 nodes. 4 plus 2 plus 3 is 9. At the minute, excluding infostealers, so just WebMon scans, about 22 terabyte. And that's last 4 months. From a, I hate saying the word business because it's the most boring part of doing this stuff. I like building it and using it. In the business sense, we're looking to scale from current average is 10 to 12 million a day. So that's just to give into perspective of that 21 terabyte. By the end of the year, we're looking to do 220 million a day. So about 18 to 20 times where we are at the minute. And where does that 220 million come from? ICANN. So ICANN centralized zone repository, which is where we get all the newly registered domains. There's about 220, 250 million domains in there at any one time registered. And our goal by the end of the year is to scan every single one of them daily. So yeah, current data is not where I want to be perfectly honest with you. Very nice. Thank you for the answer. Appreciate it. Not fully. Like on-prem could have an IP, but the company, how is country code? Good question. So I might have answered that already. So how is CC TLD support? So TLD, top level domains. So that's like your .com, your .net, whatever. They're broken into a few categories. So you got G and N, GTLD, NTLD. They stand for generic top-level domains and new top-level domains. All the generic and new top-level domains, there's about 1,200 last time I checked. .coms, .infos, .everything. They follow a process of governance where they'll put their DNS root zone file, basically, into the ICANN centralized repository. So it's one centralized repository that the likes of us at WebAmon can go to and go, we got 1,200 domain names. Now, country code, top level domain names, CCTLD, they don't follow any standard. They don't follow anything. To answer your question, the support is limited. And I always say that's because that's an industry problem. If you wanted full coverage of all the country code top level domains, you nearly have to have a single relationship with each country code's register. And an interesting fact for people that don't know, .ai is a country code domain. I always forget which one it is. It's not Angola, something else. And then .io is another country code domain. That's for Indian Ocean. But yeah, country code TLD. I've talked to DNL, SDI, and they charge. Wow, dude. So if anyone's watching this back and can't see the chat, so it's been mentioned that a certain country code top level provider charges 20K a year for their domain feed. Yeah, so I have no comment to that, to be perfectly honest. Yeah, does it surprise me? No. No, to be honest. And for your own interest, so the running average of registered domains at any one time is about 730 to 750 million. And if you remember, I said ICANN is about 250. So they're the generic and the news. the generic and new top level domains. That means there's nearly 2/3 that are country code top level domains. To be transparent, there's not great coverage on. The best that I know, I think, that does it, I was speaking to someone last week, is Domain Tools. So I believe Domain Tools has these type of relationships with all the registers, and they get them updated. So if you ever need that in a commercial sense, the country codes, from what I know, Domain Tools would be the best for that. 1K per keyword to monitor. Who is XML is very good, in fairness. One thing I noticed with Who is XML, well, in fairness, it's not a Who is XML problem. It's a Russia problem. I don't know if it's the same now, but when it comes to even takedown services, when you're dealing with certain country codes, some of them just don't care because they don't have to. And one thing I noticed was .ru takedowns started to slack at the end of like 2022. And then I kind of had this conclusion. I was like, well, it's probably because the guy's not in the office anymore. He's being conscribed to fight. So there's a lot of like macro events that can affect at least the country code takedowns I've noticed. But yeah, that's one thing I'd want to drive home as well. If you're ever going down a line of trying to get ultimate coverage, especially for newly registered domains, you're always going to have gaps when it comes to the country codes, unfortunately. And I'm happy to be proven wrong on that, please, because I want to be. Web system, you've been working on a project like WebAmon. Perfect. I need someone to take over all the technical stuff. You're hired, pay 0. Thank you. Work experience. Yeah. Listen, and I'll be honest with you. Be careful with starting projects because WebAmon was a project and it was a passion project and it was me, let's get great at security engineering. And then it turned into, it just turned into, I want to work on nothing else except this. So how do I do that? And then, I've been working on it with nothing else for the last 12 months. So I'll just, WebAmon, I think version 0.001 started as a Stephen Doyle project in 2021 or 2022. And exactly like you, I just, was in a happy company, happy place, kicking along with WebAmon. But then I got to the point when I was working my 8-10 hours a day. There was a CrowdStrike at the time. I was like, I'm just dying to work on WebAmon. And back then it was like, it wasn't called WebAmon. It didn't have a name because it was only a personal project, but it was saved in my PyCharm as Domain Guard. I was like, yeah, well, Domain Guard. But no, honestly, I will say that that hour went by faster than I thought. I hope I didn't. I know my accent can be strong, the Irish accent. So I hope you've understood. Hope you were able to follow along. What I will say, just I think it was Baum that said it. He messaged me. Yeah, look, I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm approachable. If anybody wants to test this out, if you're students and want, student access or whatever to all of our data or researcher, I'm never going to gatekeep that. Again, the whole point of this is to let the people that want to do good, because I can't find all the bad that WebAmon has. And I'm never going to commercialize that. If people want to genuinely be researchers and do good stuff, reach out to me and I'll make it happen. Thank you, News.
Hey, Steven, awesome man. Thank you for the demo. I think yeah, a lot of people really enjoyed it. Myself, I really enjoyed it as well because I haven't really yeah, dove into threat hunting at all. Um, could you like give us a couple use cases maybe for some newbies that could go to Webamon right now and maybe, yeah, find like some interesting things like you just did with the newly released domains and Revolut at the same time. You found like that cool page. Maybe you have some other things like with the C2 button. Maybe you can find some C2 panels. What are like some the easiest things that we could do? Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I'd say if anyone's working, if anyone here works in industry, whether you're in a security team or a security company, um, the way we built out these examples was these are wide and broad. If you want to focus these for your brand or your domain, so let's say, for example, I know the C2 one was touched on. Or no, yeah, we'll do malicious Android apps because I like this. Telegram and CracksRat. CracksRat was one I just found by coincidence, but this one, for example. So very simple query. We're looking for .apk in the resource of in the body of a website, and the page title Telegram. Now, let's say, for example, we worked for Coinbase or an analyst. If we just worked for an enterprise that has an app, just get the memo. .apk, my company. Now, if we were to look in here, because there's always juicy stuff, I always notice it's Chinese and Iranians being bad with Telegram. And I don't know if that's because Telegram, I don't know. I won't go down a rabbit hole. That's one thing when it comes to threat intelligence as well. You never want to be black and white about something. There's a lot of guesswork. But I've noticed over the past couple of weeks, and we can see here, newly registered domain 18th. And then the one above that was obviously the 18th as well. So these are Chinese, I have to assume, malicious Android apps. And then to the point of the C2s, I'll show you a better example. So we have the C2s. What I will say is if you use this CT, if you use the C2, C2 is command and control. This is a terrible query. I need to fix the regex. Sometimes it will return, yeah, just not great things. Anyone here that's had to learn regex 36 times in their career will understand this isn't a great one. Scattered Spider. If you don't know who they are and you want to know more about threat intelligence, Google Scattered Spider. There's great articles by ReliaQuest, some by CrowdStrike. These tactics or techniques, so the network stack they use, the domain permutations, Webamon took these from the ReliaQuest report. So we can come in here to answer your question of how we can get started with the threat hunting. This was sort of with the current times thing. Scattered Spider was big about 4 to 6 weeks ago, 4 to 8 weeks ago with all the breaches. So I tell people to come in here and go, okay, you work in threat intelligence. I'm sure you've heard of Scattered Spider. Do you want to see some Scattered Spider stuff? Great. But if you're working specifically for a company, you care more about the risk. So like I worked for Synopsys. Synopsys is the software that companies will use to put the silicon and the wafers together and transistor design. So what that means is NVIDIA or Apple make a new chip. They use Synopsys software to plan out the hundreds of millions of transistors on the silicon. So the example there from an intelligence perspective for me was, wow, we are supply chain. Like it's no, I'm not oversharing anything here. It's common knowledge. Synopsys partners website of who they're partners with. You got NVIDIA, Apple, Samsung. So I was like, and imagine if Synopsys software got pwned to the point of where, I don't know how it works, but you compile your file and it goes to the foundry to make the silicon. Like imagine at that point of the supply chain in the semiconductor and the chip manufacturing for the world, like that's where Synopsys got breached. Whenever the likes of these big Nvidia, Apple design their new chips, or Samsung for their new phone, use the Synopsys software, press save, and in the background, that's where the malicious thing happens. It puts in a hardware backdoor or whatever. So I say that because look at where you are. Like you don't care about that. It's a strong statement. Don't hold me to this, but you mightn't care about what's in the news today. And the reason you shouldn't or mightn't care about it is because it's not targeting your industry. They're an attributed threat actor. If you go to MITRE, you can find a lot of stuff of industries they do attack. And you may just work in the polar opposite. You may not even be in the countries. You may not even be anything. So don't go down a rabbit hole of going, I say this to people that obviously work in industry and have the jobs day to day. You know, what's the vertical? What's the industry you're in? Who are your customers and who are your suppliers? What do you sell? And the art is really in thinking like a threat actor. Like I know there's a few red team guys here. So like that was my thought process in Synopsys. It was, what damage can I do to the world? And it was, well, if I breach Synopsys and I rootkit every single chip made by the biggest companies in the world, yeah, mission accomplished. So you gotta always have that malicious mindset about you. Does that answer in a long way how to get started? Does that?
It does answer that, man. Thank you, thank you. Forgiven is also asking a question about Hudson Rock, if you use any of their info for the info stealer
I
info
have,
that you
yeah.
have.
Well, I haven't used them. Hudson Rock would probably be one of the main prominence when it comes to infostealer. Am I importing stuff from Hudson Rock? No. So because WebAmon is open source and Apache 2, our development culture is everything needs to be built and sourced by WebAmon. So the infostealers, we built the pipelines and source that data ourselves. For the scans, we build the sandbox and scan the web ourselves. No, it's just unfortunately the dev culture here. Like we can build integrations, but as a core product here, when you get data from WebAmon, there is no third parties. There is no Whois XML. There is no Hudson Rock. And again, that's just one of the other challenges of building open source. You know, you can't put a lot of vendor subscriptions in the background and hide it whenever you're going, here's my code. So to answer your question, no. All data we source ourselves.
Hey, Steven, maybe as a last question from me, basically there's multiple tiers of WebAmon. There's the free version. I don't know exactly what its limitations are at this moment, but there's also different versions that are paid. Um,
There is.
could you explain about the tier that we're giving away today? Maybe and the difference between that and the free one?
Yeah.
And
So the free tier, we have to limit our API quotas because, well, otherwise we're just going to go bust and people use 10,000 daily API quotas. So at the minute, our free tier is tied to your IP address. I say that honestly because if you have a VPN, I don't care if you change your IP address and get another 20. So it's 20 API calls on the public. So you don't need to authenticate. You just go to google.webamon.com. The found an analyst is something we were running just for this month. So the found an analyst is €1,500. Sorry, $1,500, €1,300. It was a one-time membership for the month of August where you get 1,000 daily API calls. You guys can still see my screen, can't you? Yeah, okay, I assume so. So very simply put, here's the table. So you get 1,000 daily API calls, so 50x the normal. When you do the free tier, you don't get certain features. So for example, we have pagination here. So we can go to the next page out of these 67 results. We can change it from 10 to 500. If we were to, you know, go back to the free tier. So if I run this now, it'll change my API to search. I don't get to change the count. So I'm stuck with 10 results. I can't do pagination. Again, it's just an architectural constraint until we grow. When we grow, we want to keep increasing this number. Like my goal is to get it to 100 daily. So ideally, nobody needs to eventually pay us. But what we're giving away today is Found an Analyst, 1,000 daily API calls for life, all the InfoStealer data. If you work for a company or you have your own personal website, somebody asked, how does the domain takedown work? We fully manage that. So we'll do that for you. And if there's one takedown a month, we do it. I hope there isn't, depending on how many personal websites somebody has here. Found in member recognition, honestly, because we're a community and we're open source, I don't know what this means yet, but it does going to mean something. Everyone that gets to Found an Analyst, whether when it comes to, community events or I don't know. I want it to actually mean something. So I'm not going to put a tag on it, what that means right now. I don't want it to be a BS thing. And then you get support. Yeah, very simply put. So what you're paying for is a lifetime license. Sorry, what you're winning is a lifetime license of 1,000 daily API calls, all of our data, all of the InfoStealer data, and one takedown request a month.
Yeah, man, that's an awesome package. Maybe just Google like a random number generator. That's what I usually do with the giveaways, and then Google has a built-in one, the random number generator. And then basically you can just do like this one. You can do like min 1 and max 20, and then basically everyone who is still here and still watching, put in a number only one time. Everyone can put in a number right now between 1 and 20, and then Steven will generate a number, and if your number hits first, basically then you win the package. So yeah,
No
I was just
duplicates.
nah, yeah,
Oh,
that's
there is. Forgiven and Wayne. Is that?
yeah. So the duplicates, we do need to solve that issue. If Forgiven or Wayne would like to change their number, then it would be good. We'll wait like a couple more seconds, and then yeah, when everyone, we'll give it like 10 more seconds. Like you can still put in a number if you're here.
I think that's everyone. There's 9 numbers there.
Yeah.
That's,
Okay, perfect. Then we can
trigger.
generate, and if it doesn't hit, we can roll again. But let's try the first one. Yeah, let's go.
I did hit it. I don't want to hit it again. Okay.
No, I think it glitches out the first one when it stays the. I had that like sometimes you press it like twice or 3 times.
Right, nothing's official here. I haven't hit click. I'm just
No,
refreshing.
refreshing. Yeah, yeah.
Right. 120. Are you ready? I'm clicking.
Let's
3,
go.
2, 1.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I don't
it
know what's
needs to
happening.
change. It needs to change the number. You can press like 2 or 3 times, and it'll change it. Let's go. Okay, this is it.
There we go.
It's
I didn't
16.
want it to come up low. Look, Wayne got it. And he was the one that changed it, wasn't he?
Hey, Wayne is the one who changed it. Yeah, that's crazy.
I didn't want to click it more than once and it start
Yeah.
going.
Now it needs to do the animation, you know? It needs to do the animation, otherwise it hasn't run. Hey,
Okay. Winning
congratulations, Wayne.
number 16.
Yeah, that's awesome,
Happy
man.
days. Congratulations.
Congratulations,
And
man.
then resources. Look, I know this goes on YouTube as well. There's a couple of, again, to answer just how these want to get started. These are 2 to 3 minute videos at Webamon on YouTube. Don't know if you have Reddit, but you can find us there. We're not overly active. We plan to be. But yeah, like I said, and again, congrats, Wayne. If you can send me a message, and then I will send you the API key. I will touch base. And yeah, honestly, please, I'm here. If anyone, number one, wants to say how terrible that was and doesn't want to do it out loud, I appreciate that feedback. Or as I said earlier, if you know any is there in a student or a research capacity and need access to the data or think it can help in your investigations, let me know. And finally, I just want to thank you. Honestly, meant a lot. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks for having me. More importantly, thanks for still having an audience here at the end. It didn't go as bad as I thought. So appreciate it. And I look forward to next time, hopefully, if there is one.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, thank you very much. This was a very interesting topic for us. Usually, we've never talked about threat intelligence before, so thank you very much for your time. It's a really awesome tool, man, to be honest. I'm definitely going to be using it as well. I think Wayne will be using it as well.
He
So
doesn't have a choice. I'm going to be looking at that API going, who was the other number 14 or 16? I'll write that down. I'm
yeah.
joking. I'm joking.
Hey man, we appreciate
Okay.
your time very much, and definitely if there's any updates, any new cool things from your side, you're obviously always welcome to come and join us and to bless us with some more knowledge, man. We're all about sharing knowledge for free in this community. So yeah, thank you very much for supporting that. And yeah,
100%.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. And tomorrow, Thursday, we have our social day. So if you just want to come out and hang out, and then Sunday again we have a Hack the Box live stream. So see you guys again soon, and have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you again, Steven. Have a nice evening,
Thank you
everyone.
all. Bye.
Yo, bye bye.